escrevi.
Oi, gente! Bem-vindos! Welcome to the Brazilian Portuguese Week. I'm so excited to be here with you today. This is the 5th Brazilian Portuguese Week. It's so good to be here. I cannot believe that this is the 5th year of this event. Let me know in the chat if you can see me and hear me well. I just had some technical issues, so I hope you can hear me well. Sim? Tudo certo? Você pode me ouvir bem? Deixa eu ver quem está aqui. Eu vejo Jorge, Roberto, Charlotte, Jake, Kiveta, Natografia, Daniel, Ania, Rose. Tudo bom, gente? I can see your comments, but I think there's a little bit of delay. Oi, Michelle, Alison. Oi, Aline. Sim, que bom. Muito bom, gente. So excited to be here. So this first class will be on verb conjugation for beginners. So I will teach the class in English, but we are going to practice Portuguese in class. So be prepared to practice Portuguese. I'm going to give you some assignments, and I want you to use the chat to do your assignments so I can read your comments and give you some feedback on your Portuguese. Tá bem? Então vamos lá. So before we start, I want to quickly review how the event is going to work. We'll be here for one entire week. So I'll be teaching one class a day starting today, and the last day will be next Saturday. So let's briefly review the curriculum, tá bem? Então vamos lá. Vou compartilhar minha tela com vocês. Só um minutinho. Okay, so this is the program. So today, class number 1 will be verb conjugation for beginners. In this class, I'm going to give you some grammar tips on how to understand how to conjugate verbs in Portuguese, what are the pronouns that we use, how to do a verb agreement, and details like that. And we're also going to practice the most common verb tenses that we use in Brazilian Portuguese, okay? Tomorrow, the class will be also for beginners. We are going to focus on basic conversation, so the most basic questions that you have to know how to answer, and I'm going to give you lots of tips on sentence structure and many other things. Class number 3 will be a pronunciation training. This class is recommended for everyone, and we are going to talk about the open and closed sounds, especially the open O and closed O. I know this is a lot of students struggle with that pronunciation. Class number 4 will be also pronunciation training on nasal sounds, which is also one of the most biggest challenges for many students. Class number 5 will be an intermediate level class. We are going to talk about the subjunctive mood and practice a little bit the most common tenses, the most important tenses from this type of conjugation. Class number 6 will also be an intermediate level class. We are going to practice some idiomatic expressions. And the last class will be on how to improve your listening skills. So I know this is, many of you struggle, like you can understand me when I speak Portuguese, but you cannot understand Brazilians when they are speaking naturally. Why is that? So we are going to talk about that in the last class. Okay, so this is the program. If you have received this link from a friend and you have not signed up yet, go to the website and sign up so you can have access to a recording of this class, and also I recommend you download the material that I prepared for this class. Okay, if you have not downloaded yet, you find this on the event site. I recommend you download it so you can study, and if you don't have time to cover the entire content here, you can review the material by yourself. Certo? Okay, we are going to have a Q&A session at the end of each class. So if you have questions, you can ask at any time. I'm going to read your comments whenever possible, but it is hard for me to read all your comments. So when I say, okay, now it's Q&A time, you can copy and paste your question. I'll do my best to answer your questions in this class. Also, I wanted to know that Aline is in the chat. Aline is our client care coordinator. She'll be she can also help you with your Portuguese and answer any questions you have about my school, my courses, You find her in the chat. Okay, and also I have some announcements to before we start the class. And the first one is that, okay, where am I? Okay, just have to change the page here. The first announcement is that my courses are now open for enrollment. If you have been following me for a while, you know that I close enrollments and I open enrollments only 3 times a year. So if you've been waiting to join one of my premium courses, now it's the time. So you can sign up for the basic version of these courses at any time, but the basic version does not include any live classes. So if you want to have group classes, you know, in a small group with students and a Brazilian teacher, and also have classes with me every week, this is the moment to join one of my courses. I call this the premium version of the courses, right? So I'm going to briefly talk about the 4 main courses that I offer. The first one is the essential course for beginners. As the name says, is recommended for beginner level students. So if you have never studied Portuguese before, you are starting now, this is the right course for you. Or if you have studied in the past, but you need to brush up, to review, this is also a good course for you. It's a very comprehensive course. The second one is the pre-intermediate workshop. This course is recommended for upper beginner level students. So if you have already studied the most basic tenses and vocabulary, but you need to build up and learn more intermediate level content. So in this course, we are going to review the basic content so you can practice and assimilate more. And you also are going to learn some basic, you're going to be introduced to intermediate level content, okay? The next course is the Grammar and Conversation Workshop. This course is for intermediate level students, upper intermediate level students. This course is not recommended for beginners, okay? It's a very advanced, intermediate advanced course. In this course, we cover the most important grammar topics, intermediate level grammar topics. So all the compound tenses, pronominal verbs, past participle, passive voice, all these things that are more complicated, we are going to cover in this course, the Grammar and Conversation Workshop. The classes are entirely in Portuguese. So if you are a beginner, I recommend you start with one of the other 2 courses, tá bem? And the Speaking Brazilian Academy is the 4th course. This course focuses on conversation practice. We don't talk much about grammar here. We do cover some grammar topics in the Q&As, but the goal of the Academy is to offer you a place to practice Portuguese, to really speak and become more fluent. So the Academy is a membership. So it is only recommended for intermediate and advanced students. You should not join the Academy if you're a beginner level student, okay? You have to start from the beginning. So in the Academy, if you have learned Portuguese for a while and you can already communicate in Portuguese, but you're just looking for a place to practice, this is the right place for you. Okay, guys, I'm not going to spend more time talking about the courses because we have to start our class. But if you want to learn more about the courses, go to my website, speakingbrazilian.com. Click on online courses and you find all the courses that are available now. And Aline can also help you if you have any questions in the chat. You can ask her, tá bem? And we also have some time at the end of the class to talk about this. If you're not sure what course is ideal for you, you can also take a placement test. You find a placement test on my website. Muito bom. Let me share here my other screen. Okay, so these are the announcements. I talked about the classes. I talked about the PDF that you can download from the website. Oh, okay. The next topic is that during this week, I'm also hosting a speaking challenge. So I wanted to practice what you learn in class, because if you just watch a class and then you don't study anymore, you don't do anything, you're probably going to forget. You're not going to assimilate the content. So to help you practice, I created this challenge. I'm using Instagram because it's super easy to use for this kind of challenges. But if you don't have Instagram, it's okay. You don't have to do the challenge, or you can just post your comments on the website. It's okay. You don't have to. It's completely optional. But if you're up for a challenge, I recommend you do the challenge. You find all the information about this challenge on the website, on the Brazilian Portuguese Week website. And there's one assignment per day. At the end of this class, I'm going to give you today's assignment. And then after the class, I recommend that you record a video and post it on Instagram and tag me so I can see your video. And also during this week, I'll be giving some gifts to a few of you. So at the end of each class, we're going to have a giveaway, and I'm going to give a travel vocabulary course. Maybe some of you have already taken this course. So I'm going to give 2 enrollments each day to some lucky students. So stay until the end of the class so you have a chance to win this course. It's a travel vocabulary course, and in this course I teach all the vocabulary, the most important vocabulary that you have to learn before you go to Brazil. And also, if you join the Instagram challenge, the speaking challenge, you also have a chance to win this prize, okay? É isso, gente. So these are the announcements. Now we can get started with our class. So everything here that I'm showing you on the screen, this material, it is available on the website for download, okay? Let me just take a look at the comments. Everything is working fine. I can see, oi, Boris, tudo bom? I can see Cláudio, Alison, Ricky, tudo bom? Claire. Okay, I'm going to read more of the comments in a minute. I'm going to give you many assignments in this class, so stay tuned and stay prepared to practice some Portuguese, okay? So let's talk about verb conjugation. Conjugação de verbos para iniciantes. Então vamos lá. So when you talk about, I know this is one of the most complicated topics for many of you because conjugating verbs in Portuguese can be tricky, okay? So many tenses, so many different pronouns. So I hope in this class to make this easier for you, to give you some tips and some important content that will help you deal with verb conjugation in a more easier way. And have fun. It's really important to have fun when learning Portuguese. So when you talk about conjugation, we have to know that the verb must agree in many different aspects, right? So the verbs in Portuguese, they have, I'm going to explain all this one by one, okay? So we have uma pessoa, a person, número, pessoa is like eu, você, ele, ela, so the person that is acting, right? Número, when I talk about number, when I'm talking about verb conjugation, I'm referring to a plural or singular. Tempo verbal, so the tense, right? Present, past, future. And in Portuguese, we also have something called modo, which will be translated as mood. I'm going to explain all this in this lesson, okay? Então vamos começar falando sobre pessoa. O que é pessoa? What does it mean when you're talking about, pessoa means person, but what does it mean when you're talking about verb conjugation? So basically, it's the person that is acting, that is conjugating the verb, right? So when I say, eu estudo português, I study Portuguese, the person here is I, and this person is it's called the first person singular. You don't have to memorize all this if you don't like grammar, but it's helpful when you're studying conjugation. So I promise you that learning a little, if you are one of those people that don't like grammar, I know it. Grammar sometimes can be overwhelming, but I recommend if you learn a little bit of grammar, this will help you a lot when you are studying some topics in Portuguese. Então vamos lá. Let's talk about the other pronouns, pessoas, that we have in Portuguese. So the first person is eu, which means I. The second person is tu, which means you, singular. The third person is ele, ela, which means he and she. This is third person singular. The first person plural is nós, which means we. We have this second person plural, vós. And the third person plural, eles e elas, which means they. In Portuguese, we have a masculine and a feminine they. However, probably many of you already know that in Brazil, we don't use these pronouns exactly like this. For instance, we don't use the pronoun vós, like never. And the pronoun tu, even though it is used in some places in Brazil, it is not as common as the other pronoun você. So this is one interesting thing that you have to pay attention when learning Brazilian Portuguese. The Portuguese that you find in grammar books is not the same Portuguese that we use, that for real, that we really speak. So I, as your teacher, I am going to teach you real Brazilian Portuguese, but that is also correct. So this is my goal as a teacher, to teach you authentic, real Brazilian Portuguese, how the way that we really use the language, right? Because if you just get a book and study, you see eu, tu, ele, nós, vós, eles. That's what I learned when I went to school as a kid, but I never used the pronoun vós in my entire life. Nobody does. So what is the point? I'm not going to teach you that. I don't want you to give a headache for something that you're not, to learn something that you're never going to use, okay? So some details here about the Portuguese that we actually use in Brazil. So in most places in Brazil, the pronoun tu was replaced by the pronoun você. The pronoun você has an interesting history. It's actually a treatment pronoun that became very common in Brazil. It used to be very formal in the past, but today it is not formal at all. It's a very regular, informal, can be used in formal and informal situations. So I recommend you use pronoun você instead of tu. And also the conjugation for the pronoun você is easier because it is the same conjugation for the pronouns ele and ela in the third person singular. Also, colloquially, most people in Brazil will replace the pronoun nós, which means we, with the pronominal phrase a gente. So, a gente means exactly the same thing as nós, it means we, but the conjugation is also simpler. The conjugation of this phrase, this pronoun, is in the third person singular. I am going to give you some examples in a minute so you understand how the conjugation works. The third comment I want to make is about the pronoun vós, and we just don't use this in Brazil at all. So just forget it. You find this in very old literature and also in the Bible, but that's it. We don't use this pronoun, not even in written texts. We don't use it at all. So you don't have to learn it. So to sum up, that's the pronouns that we really use in Brazil. Eu, first person singular, ele, ela, você, e a gente, all these pronouns, they are considered third person singular. Therefore, the conjugation should be for the third person singular, okay? So even if you're talking about you, it would be the same conjugation for ele e ela. And also a gente, which means nós, but if you use the pronoun a gente, the conjugation will be the same one for the pronoun você, ele, ela. Okay, I'm going to give you an example in a minute. And then we have the first person plural, nós. We do use this pronoun. We use both the pronoun nós and the pronoun a gente. They mean the same thing, but a gente is more informal, colloquial, and nós is the most traditional way of saying we. And the third person plural would be eles, they, elas, they, feminine, and vocês. Vocês means like you all. It's a plural of you. You're talking with more than one person. Okay, so these are the pronouns. We are going to talk a lot about concordância verbal, verbal agreement, and I'm going to show you how to conjugate verbs for each of these groups. So it is very important to, now that you know these persons, right, the pronouns, first person, third person, etc. Now you have a different conjugation for each one of these persons, right? So let's see the conjugation of verb ser. Ser is the verb to be in Portuguese. So here, first person, eu sou, I am, eu sou. Third person, você é, you are. Ela ou ele é, he is. Ela é, she is. A gente é. So this last one here, even though it is singular, it means we are. We are, okay? And then we have nós somos, which also means we are. What is the difference? Of course, the conjugation is different. You cannot say a gente somos. That would be wrong. We have to say, if you use the pronoun a gente, you have to conjugate the verb in the third person singular, okay? And if you use the pronoun nós, you have to conjugate the verb in the first person plural, nós somos. The meaning is we are, but a gente is more used like in informal, colloquial situations. Everybody uses it. It's not wrong. It's just more informal. And nós somos, like the pronoun nós, is the most traditional. It is also correct. It's also very common. So you can choose the one that you prefer. But you see that Brazilians use the pronoun a gente a lot. It's very, very common. And then we have the third person plural. Vocês são means you are, you plural. You all are, vocês são. Eles são means they are, but when I say eles, it's the masculine eles. So the pronoun eles in plural can be used to refer to a group of men or a mixed group with men and women. Elas são, here's the feminine form of they are. Elas is only used for a group of women. Certo? Ok, gente. I'm going to give you... Okay, just looking here, seeing your comments to see if everything is okay. Is it too difficult? Let me know in the comments. Vamos lá, então vamos continuar. I'm going to give you the first assignment in a minute. Just now, before that, let's briefly talk about what are modus verbais. What is this? So in Portuguese, we have what we call verbal moods. So basically, each modo verbal talks about how verbs, the kind of what the verb is expressing, right? So for instance, the most common modo verbal in Portuguese is the indicative mode, modo indicativo. And this one is the most common one, is the one that we are going to study today. It is used to express facts and things that are certain. So you talk about things that you do every day, you talk about things that you did yesterday, and things that you are going to do in the future. So this is indicative mode, to talk about facts and things that are certain. Por exemplo, eu estudo português. I study Portuguese. Here I'm using present tense from this indicative mode. And then we have subjunctive mode. We are going to talk about this in one of the classes. I don't remember which one. I think it's number 4 or 5. So this mode is more intermediate or advanced level because it's a little bit more complicated. This mode is used to express doubts, possibilities, wishes. It's not something certain. It is usually uncertain. Por exemplo, talvez eu viaje ao Brasil no próximo ano. So whenever I use the word talvez, which means maybe, usually I have to use this mode because I'm talking about something that is not certain. I don't know, like maybe I'll travel to Brazil next year. Maybe. Talvez eu viaje ao Brasil no próximo ano. So here, I have to use this mode because I'm expressing something that is not certain. And then we have the third mode is imperative mode, modo imperativo. This one is used mostly to give orders, to ask for things, and also to give advice. There are many tips that I could give you about this, but we're not going to cover this today. This is also more intermediate or advanced level. But for instance, entre, por favor. Please come in. So this verb here, entre, come in. You're asking the person to come in. Here we use this different tense, this different mode called modo imperativo. Okay? So if you are a beginner level student, don't worry about modo subjuntivo and imperativo for now. It's too much information for a beginner level student. So I cover all of this in my courses. So I cover subjunctive mode at the end of the pre-intermediate course and in detail in the grammar course. and also the modo imperativo we cover also in these courses. But for beginner level students, I recommend you focus on modo indicativo and all the tenses of that most commonly used mode, tá bem? So that's what we are going to cover in this class. We are going to cover the most common, the most important tenses in modo indicativo. So o que são tempos verbais? What are verbal tenses? So I've been talking a lot about tenses, but basically the modus verbais, they say when that action took place, right? Does it take place in the present, the past, the future? So these are tempos verbais. That's why they are called tempo. In Portuguese, tempo means a time. Então, nessa lição, in this lesson, we are going to study these tenses, which are the most important ones that you have to learn. Presente, present tense. Pretérito perfeito, which is the simple past tense. Pretérito imperfeito, which is the imperfect past tense. Futuro do presente, which is basically the future tense. And futuro do pretérito, which is a conditional tense. So today, of course, we have just like a short class, so we're going to cover this briefly. So this, if you have studied this before, this will be a review for you. If you have never studied Portuguese, of course, you're not going to learn all this in one single class. You need time and you need a lot of exercises to learn this. So I do cover all this in detail in my beginner's course. So if that's your case, if you're starting learning Portuguese now, and you want to learn all this, my course, the Essential Course for Beginners, I cover all this and all the vocabulary that you need to use all these tenses. I cover in my beginner's course, tá bem? But today I'm going to give you a good overview of all these tenses. Então vamos lá. Vamos começar sobre o presente. Let's start talking about present tense. So the way that we use this tense is very similar to the way that we use present tense in English, right? So we use this tense to talk about things that we usually do in our daily lives, to talk about our routine, things that you do every day, every week, every month. Por exemplo, eu acordo cedo todos os dias. I wake up early every day. So here I'm talking about my morning routine. Eu gosto de caminhar no parque com meu cachorro. I like to walk in the park with my dog. So here I'm using two verbs in the present tense. Eu acordo, eu gosto. These are regular verbs. Acordar is the verb, means to wake up. Gostar means to like. And all verbs ending in AR, they are conjugated the same way, right? Because they are regular verbs. There are some irregular verbs that end in AR, but basically most of the verbs that end in AR are regular verbs. These are the most common verbs in Portuguese. So, for instance, acordar, wake up, caminhar, to walk, trabalhar, to work, gostar, to like, falar, to speak, and so many others. So, anytime we use this verb, the conjugation will be similar to this. Eu acordo, eu caminho, eu falo. We always add the letter O at the end when conjugating for the first person, eu. Okay, now we have the first assignment of the day. I want you to answer this question in the chat to practice your Portuguese. So, o que você gosta de fazer nas horas livres? What do you like to do in your free time, in your spare time? How would you answer this question in Portuguese? For example, I said, eu gosto. So if you're talking about yourself, you're always going to say eu gosto. I like. Eu gosto. This verb is always used with the preposition de. I like, eu gosto, de, and then you can add any verb here. So if you are a beginner level student, if you cannot answer this question by yourself, you can use Google Translate, it's fine. But if you have studied for a while, try to answer this question without using any tool. O que você gosta de fazer nas suas horas livres? O que você gosta de fazer nas horas livres? Type your answer in the chat. I'm going to read some of your answers and try to help you with your Portuguese. And also if you have any questions about, I know that this is a lot of information. If you have any questions about verb agreement and all these tenses that we are talking about today, feel free to ask your question, tá bem? So I see a comment here. Can you guys hear me well? I see someone asking to turn up the volume. You should be, the microphone is very close to me, so you should be able to hear me all right? Tá, vamos lá. Eu vou ver alguns dos seus comentários. Muito bom. Eu gosto de jogar tênis. Excelente. Eu gosto de aprender português. Muito bom. Eu leio livros nas horas livres. Excelente, Oleg. Nas horas, nas horas. Eu gosto de limpar a casa. Muito bom, Leane. Eu gosto de meditar. Excelente, Shira. Muito bom. Eu gosto de fotografia. Muito bom, Tatiana. Gosto de visitar minha família no Brasil. Excelente, Charlotte. Gosto de aprender português. Muito bom. I wish I could read all your comments, but if I did, we would spend the entire time here just reading your comments. Okay, so continue doing this exercise. Let's move on to the second most important tense that you have to learn in Portuguese, which is passado, simples, pretérito perfeito. So the word pretérito means past. It's just a fancy word for past. So pretérito perfeito. So as the name says, we use this tense to talk about things that happened in the past. So usually we have two past tenses in Portuguese, right? So this tense is used to talk about things that happened once. For instance, ontem eu acordei cedo. So yesterday I woke up early. I only woke up yesterday like once, right? It was not something that I did many times. Esta manhã, this morning, eu caminhei no parque. I walked in the park or at the park. So here, eu caminhei, it means that it's something that I did one time this morning. If you're talking about a routine in the past, something that you did many times, if you're saying that you used to do something in the past, then we should use the other tense that we're going to cover in a minute. So another question for you to practice your Portuguese. O que você fez ontem? What did you do yesterday? O que você fez ontem? To answer this question, you have to use pretérito perfeito. So you can try to use a similar verb if you're not sure how to conjugate verbs in Portuguese yet. So this is verb acordar, to wake up. This is verb caminhar, to walk. These are the same verbs that I used before. But here you see that the conjugation is different, right? So in present tense, it's eu caminho for the first person. Eu caminho. Eu caminho. So this is present tense. Eu caminho no parque todos os dias. So I walk at the park every day. So this is present tense. But then when I say that this morning or yesterday I walked, then in the past tense I have to conjugate eu caminhei. Eu caminhei. Caminhei no parque ontem. So I walked at the park yesterday. Eu caminho, present tense. Eu caminhei, past tense. Certo? So tell me in the chat, what did you do yesterday? O que você fez ontem? Tell me one thing that you did yesterday in Portuguese. O que você fez ontem? Me diga uma coisa que você fez ontem. Vamos lá. I want to read some of your comments. Ontem eu fui ao supermercado. Excelente. So, eu fui is an irregular verb. Verbo ir, which means to go. So, I went to the supermarket. Eu fui ao supermercado. Muito bom. Ontem à noite fui à festa de aniversário do meu marido. Excelente. Que mais? Eu plantei árvores ontem. Que legal. I planted some trees. Ontem eu jantei com uns amigos e assisti um filme. Excelente, Eva. Muito bom. Ruth, ontem eu trabalhei de manhã. Muito bom, de manhã. Muito bom, gente. Trabalhei até 1 da... Uau, você trabalhou até 1 da tarde ou 1 da manhã? Espero que tenha sido 1 da tarde. Ontem eu nadei, muito bom. Excelente, gente. Eu cozinhei para uma amiga, muito bom, Natalie. Ontem eu fui limpar o banheiro, excelente. You guys are doing great? Ontem encontrei com uma amiga da família. So this verb encontrar in this context, I would say eu me encontrei with, eu me encontrei com uma amiga, or eu encontrei uma amiga. If you use the preposition com, you should say eu me encontrei. Just one of the, one detail of this verb. Ontem eu almocei brunch, muito bom. I think in Brazil, I know the word brunch is an English word, but in Brazil we also use this word, so you could say ontem eu comi brunch, eu saí com meus amigos para comer brunch. I think you could use the verb comer instead of almoçar. Eu aprendi português ontem, muito bom. Okay, let's continue. You're doing very good. Vamos falar sobre o terceiro tempo verbal, the third tense. I'm drinking here, right? It's warm today, so I'm drinking iced coffee. I'm really happy about that. Vamos falar sobre pretérito imperfeito. So the imperfect tense. So this tense is one of the most difficult ones for students that do not know any Romance language, right? Because we do have this tense in French and Spanish, but we don't have this tense in English. So I know that it can be challenging for some of you. So basically, we are not going to go into many details today, but one thing that it can help you understand how to use this tense is, remember, we use the imperfect tense when we are describing, when you're talking about a routine, something that you did in the past many times, something that you used to do. So if you could say, I used to do this in the past, in Portuguese, you should use the pretérito imperfeito, tá bem? So this can help. There are many other nuances to this tense, but today let's focus on the most common use of this tense, tá bem? So, por exemplo, quando eu era criança, eu morava no Brasil. So when I was a child, I lived in Brazil. So here I could say I lived or I used to live, right? Both would work in English. So in Portuguese, we have to use this tense. Eu morava no Brasil. So whenever I use this kind of structure in Portuguese, when I was young, when I was a child, when I was in college, when I lived in that place, if you start a sentence like this, you already know if you're talking about something that you used to do in the past, where you used to live, where you used to work, anything like that. In Portuguese, we should use pretérito imperfeito, tá bem? Another example. Quando eu estava na faculdade, eu gostava de sair com meus amigos. So when I was in college, I liked to go out with my friends. So here, so this verb is the verb ser, to be, in pretérito imperfeito. And this is verb morar, to live, in pretérito imperfeito. Here we have another verb to be, verb estar, in pretérito imperfeito. And here, verb gostar, also in pretérito imperfeito. I have one more question for you, so you can practice this tense. Onde você morava quando era criança? So, where did you live when you were a child? So, where did you used to live? Onde você morava quando você era criança? So to answer this question, you have to use this tense. So if this tense is still difficult for you, you can just use this structure. Eu morava, I lived, eu morava, and then you can say the place. For instance, here I'm saying eu morava no Brasil. So I used to live in Brazil when I was a child. So here you can just add the name of the country or the city. For example, eu morava no Brasil, or you could say eu morava nos Estados Unidos. If you're saying the name of a country, remember you have to use the preposition that agrees with that country. Or eu morava em São Paulo. Eu morava na Itália. So here I'm giving you different examples so just you see the gender. So the verb is always the same. I lived, or I used to live. Morava, it's correct. So no Brasil. Why do I say no Brasil and na Itália? So this is because Brasil is a masculine word, is a masculine noun, and Italia is a feminine noun, it's a feminine word. So I have to say no Brasil, na Itália. And usually, why am I saying no and na? The verb morar is commonly used with this preposition, the preposition em, morar em. This is the neutral preposition, morar em, to live in, right? It's similar to English here. To live in, morar em. But then we use na or no before, right before a feminine noun or a masculine noun. Em plus a equals na. So this is the feminine, and em plus o equals no. So this is the masculine. I know it's a lot of things. If you have never studied these prepositions before, don't worry about that. I have some lessons on this on my YouTube channel. And of course, I cover this in detail in all my courses. But answer the question, onde você morava quando você era criança? Eu morava, and then you can add the place where you used to live. Vamos lá, I want to see some of your comments. So how do you know parque is masculine? Gender in Portuguese is so complicated. Words ending with the letter E could be, depending on the case, could be masculine or feminine. So many times there's no way to know. You have to learn with practice. I do have a video about this on my channel. I recommend you take a look. So I talk about so many rules, but this is one of those words that it's hard to tell. Words that end with the letter E. Knowing the exact gender of words in Portuguese it's one of the biggest challenges. But don't worry about that, because if you say na parque instead of no parque, if you use the preposition, the article feminine instead of the masculine, that would not get in the way of your communication. People will understand what you say. So I know this is one of the most difficult things about learning Portuguese, but it's not one of the most important things, because you can communicate really well even if you make some small mistakes when you're using saying the gender of words. Oi, Shannon, quanto tempo? Como está? Eu cozinhei o jantar para a minha equipe ontem. Excelente! Muito bom, gente. So many comments here. Okay, I'm going to the end of the list so I can see new comments. Eu morava no Havaí, no Havaí. So here I have to use, if you don't know the gender, it's okay. You can just use the neutral preposition, but you have to use the correct preposition, right? So if you say eu morava de Havaí, it means I lived from Hawaii, because de means from. So here you want to say I lived in Hawaii, right? So you should say eu morava no Havaí or em Havaí. If you don't know the gender, you can just say em, which is the neutral preposition, but you have to use the correct preposition. Eu morava no Havaí. Havaí in Portuguese is a masculine word. Eu morava no Havaí. Muito bom, Sunny. Havaí é tão bonito. Such a beautiful place. Eu morava em México. Muito bom, Roberto. México is masculine. Eu morava no México. No México. Excelente. Eu morava em Campinas. Muito bom, Debbie. Que legal. Eu morava nos Estados Unidos. Excelente. Eu morava no Rio de Janeiro. Excelente. Muito bom, gente. Eu morava em uma pequena cidade. Muito bom, Abraham. Obrigada pelo super chat. Olha só. So, just one detail here, Abraham. You said no pequena cidade. Cidade is a feminine word. I know one of those words that how do I know, right? But the word cidade is feminine. So you could say eu morava em uma pequena cidade. I lived in a small city. Em uma pequena cidade, because the word cidade is feminine. Em uma pequena cidade. Excelente. Very good, guys. So let's move on so we have time to finish this content before we finish the class. So I'll talk about one more tense. And the last one you have to study by yourself. You can use the material to study this tense. But I want to talk about future, futuro. So one interesting thing about future tense in Portuguese is that we have the formal one and the colloquial one. So, por exemplo, we could say, if you want to say, oh, tomorrow I'm going to watch a movie, you could say, amanhã eu assistirei a filme. This is the most, it sounds formal. It is not super uncommon. Some people use this tense, but it sounds a little bit formal. I think maybe it is more commonly used like in journalism or in more formal situations. The most common way of saying this is actually amanhã eu vou assistir a filme. Eu vou assistir. So here I'm using verb ir, eu vou, and then the main verb it's not conjugated. So this tense is actually super easy to use. We call this futuro imediato. It's actually a compound tense, right? We have two verbs. Eu vou. It's similar to English, right? I am going to. It's similar. Eu vou assistir. I'm going to watch. Eu vou assistir a filme. So this second one is the most common one. Both tenses, they mean the same thing. It's just like in English, you could say, I will watch or I'm going to watch. Most of the time, I know there's a difference, but it's subtle, right? Most of the time, you could use this interchangeably. In Portuguese, it's the same way. Eu assistirei. Eu vou assistir. In colloquial language, we use the second option, much more common. Okay, but you can use both. Both ways are correct. So I have one more question for you. I want you to practice this tense. O que você vai fazer amanhã? What are you going to do tomorrow? Tell me one thing, uma coisa que você vai fazer amanhã. Por exemplo, eu vou trabalhar, eu vou caminhar, eu vou tomar café. So this tense is super easy to use, the compound one especially, because you just say eu vou, I'm going to, and then you add the verb. The main verb, actually, you don't have to conjugate it. So in Portuguese, whenever you use two verbs, usually you just conjugate the first verb. You don't have to conjugate the second verb. So in this case, this tense is super easy to use. Of course, you just need the vocabulary, right? So, o que você vai fazer amanhã? Tell me one thing that you are going to do tomorrow. Tell me in the chat. And I wanted to cover one more tense with you, but this tense is more, I do cover this tense in the beginner's course, but it's a more complicated tense, the conditional, so I'm not going to talk about this in this class, so because you don't have much time left, but you can study the material by yourself, and there are some exercises here that I added at the end, so you can, in your PDF, so you can practice, and if you want to just see how to conjugate a verb, I recommend you use this website. Conjugação.com.br is an excellent website for consultation, okay? I don't want you to spend too much time in this on this website because you're going to get crazy, but just to briefly look how to conjugate a verb, this is a very useful website, tá bem? Vamos lá, I want to see your comments, and now we have some time left, and I want you to I would love to answer some of your questions. If you have any questions for me, I would like to keep the questions related to this topic because if we start a new topic, that will take too long. Also, if you have any questions about my courses that start in May, feel free to ask your question now. Vamos lá. Amanhã eu vou fazer uma entrevista de emprego. Que bom! Boa sorte! Good luck! Amanhã vou trabalhar na escola. Excelente! Vou trabalhar na pré-escola. Muito bom! Amanhã eu vou treinar. So here, since we're using two verbs, the second verb you don't have to conjugate, so you can say just amanhã eu vou treinar. AR at the end. Amanhã eu vou ir para a biblioteca para escrever minha dissertação. Excelente! So just one brief comment here. In Brazil, usually when you use the verb ir twice, eu vou and then ir, usually we drop the second one. It's just like you just use the present tense to talk about the future tense. But this is not wrong. It's just one detail of the language and nuance of the language. Amanhã eu vou fazer uma sobrancelha brasileira com minha namorada. Uau, muito bom! A sobremesa, gente, eu li errado. I read this wrong. Eu vou fazer uma sobremesa. Que legal, boa sorte, que delícia. Amanhã eu vou a um encontro. Muito bom, Noah. Boa sorte. Just curious, does a noun's gender ever change across Portuguese dialect? That's an excellent question. I don't think so. I think in Portugal, Brazilian Portuguese and European Portuguese, there's so many differences, but I don't think we have differences in gender as far as I know. We have a lot of differences in pronunciation, vocabulary, but I think that gender is always the same as far as I know. Maybe there is a difference, but I don't know. Amanhã vou ensinar francês. Muito bom! Muito bom, gente! Sobremesa. Sobremesa is a dessert. So the person, I don't remember the name, said that he was learning to make a Brazilian dessert. Muito bom! Eu estudo português há quase um ano com Duolingo. Como eu sei meu nível? It's really hard to tell, if you can use all these tenses that I mentioned here, if you're comfortable using all these tenses, you could say that your level is upper beginner level. This is a very, very simple way, right? Of course, there are so many other details that you should look at to really determine your level in the language. But if you can use, I would say if you can use these tenses in subjunctive mood, I would say you could say that you have an intermediate level, but also how is your understanding? Can you understand Brazilian speaking? Can you have a conversation? If you can, definitely intermediate level. Advanced level then would be like I would add many more things. Determine one's level, it's something tricky. Muito bom, gente. So tell me if you have, I'm going to take a look at your comments in a minute. While you think about your questions, I just want to mention a few more things before we finish the class. So let's go to the end. So remember, and stay with me until the end. We still have 5 more minutes because we're going to have the giveaway in a few minutes, so stay with me. So I mentioned at the beginning that I'm hosting this challenge, this is speaking challenge. So what I wanted to do today is to record a video saying 3 sentences using the 3 main tenses: present, past, and future, right? You don't have to use the imperfect tense. You can just use the regular past tense, the present tense. For instance, eu estudo português, todos os dias. Eu estudei português ontem, I studied Portuguese yesterday. Amanhã eu vou estudar português. So I'm here using the 3 most important tenses in Portuguese. And this is my challenge to you today. Record a video saying one sentence using each one of these tenses. You can choose your sentence, you can choose your verb. And then share it on Instagram and tag me so I can see your video. I love these challenges because I can see your faces. In this class, I cannot really, you can see me, but I cannot see you. But if you do the challenge, I'll be able to see you. So tag me, and also at the end of this, the week, I'm going to give away 2 enrollments to my travel vocabulary course to those who participate in the challenge. And the more challenges you make, the more chances you have to win, okay? I'm going to get everybody's names and have this giveaway at the end of the week, at the end of the event. So here, okay, so I'm just giving you more. I'm going to announce the winners at on Monday, April 23rd. Is it Monday? No, it's Sunday, the next Sunday, 1 week from now. But now we're also going to have 2 giveaways today at the end of this class. Just stick with me for one more minute. Before we have the giveaway, I just want to remind you that enrollment for my courses is now open. So if you've been waiting to join one of my premium courses, what I mean by premium courses, I mean the courses with group classes and live lessons with me. All my courses, they include the premium courses, they include group classes in small groups with a Brazilian teacher. I work with a small team of teachers. They're all very experienced and the students love them. And once a week, every Saturday, I also host a Q&A. The classes in my school, they're actually via Zoom. So we have much more contact because I'll be able to see you. You can unmute and speak and ask your questions. So you can find all the information about my courses on my website, speakingbrazilian.com/courses. Also, Aline can add the link in the chat. As I mentioned at the beginning of the class, I offer 4 main courses. The recommended one for beginners is the essential course for beginners. So if this class is a little bit difficult for you, I recommend you join the essential course for beginners. I cover all the tenses and much more and a lot of vocabulary. And this course is a very comprehensive course for beginners and also a very good one to review content. The second one is the pre-intermediate workshop, which is for upper beginner level students. In this course, I cover the most, we're going to review the basic content and also introduce you to intermediate level content. The next course is the grammar and conversation workshop. This course is for intermediate level students. It's totally in Portuguese, and we cover all the most complex grammar topics in this course. And the next one, the 4th one, is the Speaking Brazilian Academy, which is a membership course for intermediate and advanced level students. And in this course, it's actually my favorite course. It's super fun. It's mostly to help you become more fluent in Portuguese. And we practice conversation, and you learn about Brazilian culture and a lot of topics in a fun setting. So if you want to learn more, go to my website. You can also take a placement test here to see what course is ideal for you. Okay, let me see here. Let me see if you guys have more questions. Gente, okay. It's hard to read our comments. What is the timing for the live class? So you find the schedule on each course's page, so it really depends on the course. So if you go to the essential course page, scroll down and you find the tentative schedule. Usually after you can select your class after you enroll, and sometimes I open more classes. So if I have more students, and I sometimes I open more classes to accommodate everyone. But you find all the schedule on each course's page. And if you cannot find it, email Aline and she will help you with that. You find her email on the website too. Que mais? Okay. What would be the gifts? So the gifts that I'm giving today, actually, they are enrollments in one of my courses, the Travel Vocabulary Crash Course. It's a course in which I teach you everything, all the vocabulary you need to know before you go to Brazil. So stay with me. We have the giveaway in a couple of minutes. I'm just seeing if there is any question that I've not answered. So do you have suggestions for memorizing the prepositions for different verbs? This is really, I think you need time because there is no rules. You can use a space repetition system app. Like I really like to use Anki Web. There is this free version on the online and also a paid version on your phone that you can download. And this app can be used to memorize anything. So this would be an interesting way to help you with verbs with prepositions because there are no rules. You have to learn one by one. Just like phrasal verbs in English, you have to learn them one by one. So, muito obrigada. As próximas aulas vão ser faladas em português ou em inglês. So, we have some classes, beginner level classes and intermediate level classes during this week. So, tomorrow's class is also beginner level, so it will also be in English. But the next but we have two classes entirely in Portuguese, the intermediate level classes. But most classes I'm teaching in English so everyone can understand me. But the two intermediate level lessons will be entirely in Portuguese. Muito bom, gente. Okay, if you have any... Is the live class 1 hour? I'm not sure if you're talking about the Brazilian Portuguese Week or my courses. So in my courses, the live classes, they last 55 minutes. Sometimes 5 minutes to 1 hour. Yes. And the Brazilian Portuguese Week too, like 1 hour, sometimes 1 hour and 5 minutes. Muito bom, gente. Okay, so it's time to move on to our giveaway. Let me see here if Aline sent me any question that I did not answer. Okay, Aline told me that the sound is very low, right? I'm sorry about that, guys. I'll fix this for tomorrow's class. We had some technical issues here. Então vamos lá. So let's move on to our giveaway. It's giveaway time. So Aline is going to select some of you who are active on the live chat. So while she does that, I'm going to play a song for you that I downloaded today for this class. Okay, guys. So the winners, we have two winners today. The first one is Desi Mora. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Desi Mora. Desi Mora. Parabéns para Desi. Let me hear applause. So Desi, you are the winner. You won a enrollment in my travel vocabulary course. To get your course, please email Aline. Her email is school@speakingbrazilian.com. So, okay, the music is loud and my voice is low. I'm not lucky today. I promise tomorrow things will be better. I tested everything, but you know how it is. Okay, second person. I'm so sorry, Susanna. Sorry, guys. Oh, technical issues, they are so annoying. So, one more person. The next person is Debbie Lusky. Debbie Lusky. You are the winner. So, we have two winners today. Desi Mora and Debbie Lusky. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing your names correctly. So, you are the two winners today. Parabéns! So to receive your course, access to your course, please email Aline. Her email is school@speakingbrazilian.com. Gente, it was a pleasure to be with you today. So tomorrow I'll be here at the same time. So tomorrow 2 p.m. New York time. I hope you join me. If you cannot, you will be able to watch a recording of the class after the class. Tá bem, gente? And tomorrow I hope my volume will be better. Beijo e até amanhã. Tchau, tchau.